Hare Krishna, we'll start with the invocation prayers. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapad Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijan Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Shri Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishvanu Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vajakalpatarupascha Kripa Sindhu Vaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, thank you all for coming. We welcome Ria. She's already spent more time to get caught up on class recordings, as well as she's already doing austerity because she's from Australia and it's almost close to midnight in Australia, but she is brave enough to join the classes as much as will be possible for her. So welcome, Ria. And even though you are joining partway through, feel free to ask any and all questions. Ria is Polomi's friend. Polomi did a very good teaching activity endeavor. All right.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so quick announcement that our next class on next Saturday, 24th May, will start 15 minutes early because it's going to be a very heavy discussion about how does Krishna know the future. And we'll use Janisha as an example for her travel to Maldives, as well as how she is from Nepal, as well as has also traveled to India. So we'll use this example and you will realize at our next class why we're using Janisha as an example. So make a note. I will, of course, post this in the WhatsApp group that our classes will start 15 minutes early just for next Saturday, 24th of May. So we'll continue our discussion on chapter 7. But before we continue the discussion on chapter 7, some important points that we discussed at our last class. That if your hearing of Bhagavad Gita becomes weak, meaning if you are not regular in hearing Bhagavad Gita, not regular in hearing Srila Prabhupada lectures, then your spirituality becomes weak. Then you will notice that you are getting away from Bhagavad Gita study and getting away from Krishna consciousness. Simultaneously, material taste is anyway there, and material taste props up again. Therefore, if you miss a class, you should have a diligent process to listen to class recording as soon as possible. Plus, from each class recording, you should try to send me at least one striking point and at least one inquiry from each recording. This will force you to follow a discipline. Now, if you travel to and from your home country, or you have family visiting you, or you have some big functions such as marriage, etc., and if you are not diligent in listening to Bhagavad Gita, then Maya is right there. And you will feel that everyone is enjoying in the material world. What am I doing, trying to torture myself with chanting Hare Krishna, reading Bhagavad Gita? Who has seen God? Does God really exist? And all such other similar nonsensical thoughts will come in the mind. We have discussed these points in Bhagavad Gita chapter 1 with the Pratyaksha Praman discussion, that enjoyment seems all around us and readily available, while Krishna seems far away and irrelevant. And at our last class, we also discussed how to perceive Krishna's presence 24 hours around us, because Krishna is everywhere. And we discussed some important examples on our day-to-day use, such as Krishna is taste of water, Krishna is sun and the moon, ability in men. These are practical examples that we can use every day. Now, my humble request to those who do not endeavor to the spiritual endeavor homework questions, or those who do not listen to Srila Prabhupada lectures, my humble request is to change your approach, at least on a go-forward basis, and endeavor on the spiritual endeavor questions. You will be getting spiritual endeavor questions for before the start of each of the chapters 8, 9, 10, and 11. Very important spiritual endeavor questions. As well as listen to Srila Prabhupada lectures. We discussed in 7.1 that hearing from pure devotees such as Srila Prabhupada is the process of Krishna consciousness. Now, instead of following the process given by acharyas, if you try to manufacture your own process, recognize that this is your contaminated mind talking. Because mind likes to distract. In Bhagavad Gita, we have discussed in 2.54 on Arjuna's inquiry about the characteristics of Nishkam Karma Yogi. Krishna has said in Bhagavad Gita 2.56, Manogatam means give up concoction originating in the mind. We have also discussed multiple times that at initial stages of my spirituality, I cannot trust my intelligence at all. Rather, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra are my intelligence. So I request all of you to please endeavor. And if you miss a class, try to listen to class recording as soon as possible and send me at least one striking point, one inquiry from each recording, so that you don't get caught up through Maya. Everybody with me? Questions, comments, realizations so far? All right. So we will now continue from chapter 7, verse number 13 onwards. So in chapter 7, section 1 verses, we discussed knowledge about Krishna and how Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, pervades the entire existence. And this knowledge that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead should lead one to section 2 verses on surrender. So section 2 is verses 13 to 25. Title is Surrender to Krishna. That how the knowledge of Krishna leads to surrender. This section 2 is divided into 4 subsections. Verses 13 and 14 is why surrender. Verse 15 is those who do not surrender. Verses 16 to 19, those who do surrender. And verses 20 to 25, those who surrender to something other than Krishna, meaning those who surrender to demigods. Diksha will read verse number 13 translation, chapter 7, verse number 13.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Deluded by 3 modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible.
Oh. So Krishna is emphasizing that he is beyond the 3 modes. These 3 modes cause bewilderment. The 3 modes make people forget Krishna and misunderstand Krishna. So question becomes, how do the modes cause forgetfulness? The answer is, modes color our perception of everything. Just as, say, if I put on a red tinted glass, everything that I see would look reddish. So the 3 modes cause coloring, or the 3 modes cause contamination of our vision, which leads to us forgetting Krishna. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that those who are in the mode of goodness, they are also bewildered about Krishna. In this 7.13, Krishna says that the covering of the 3 modes deludes everyone. In here, Krishna is saying that how the covering of the 3 modes prevents the living entity from understanding him. The example to understand this is that sun is covered by cloud from those on earth. So meaning the cloud blocks sun from observers on earth. Now it may seem that the clouds are covering the sun, but sun cannot be covered by the cloud. What actually is covered is our vision, meaning those who are observing the sun from the earth. Such people on earth, their vision is covered by the cloud. Sun is not covered. Similarly, Krishna is like the sun. Krishna is not covered by Maya, but we are covered by Maya. Our vision is covered by Maya. Questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Madan Prabhu.
So why three modes makes living entity forget? Krishna wants everybody to come to him, and yet his three modes make living entity forget about him. So I'm not sure why. What is the purpose?
Yeah. This is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2 at the start. So why material world is created is because the jiva had the desire to enjoy. And for the jiva to enjoy in the material world, he has to first forget his original identity as the eternal soul. Therefore, as part of creation, the Brahmaji, when he did the secondary creation, the first thing that Brahmaji created was 5 types of ignorance, so that the jiva can forget his original identity, so that he can enjoy in the material world. So this was the necessity for Brahmaji to first create ignorance, so that living entities can forget and then can proceed on their enjoying mentality. Without that forgetting the original identity, it was not possible for jiva to enjoy. So it was a necessity. And as part of ignorance, meaning as part of creation, the ego and the 3 modes are all part of creation, so that jiva can fulfill their desires in the material world. Yeah, you are correct that Krishna wants everybody back. But then simultaneously jiva have their desires also. And Krishna wants the jiva to fulfill their desire. That's why material world is created. And therefore, the 3 modes cause this coloring or this contamination of our vision. Matan Prabhu?
Yes, thank you. Okay, Hare Krishna.
All right, very good. So 7.14 is a key memorization verse. I will recite the Sanskrit of the verse, and then you all can unmute and recite one line after me, please. 7.14. दैवी है ऐसा गुनामयी मम माया दुरत्यय माम एवा ये प्रपद्यन्ते मयाम एताम तरन्ति ते. Everybody unmute and recite one line after me, please. दैवी है ऐसा गुनामयी
दैवी है ऐसा गुनामयी
मम माया दुरत्यय
माया दुरत्यय
माम एवा ये प्रपद्यन्ते
माम एव प्रपद्यन्ते
Padyanti
मयाम एताम तरन्ति ते.
Tarantite.
Very good. Rashi, translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Krishna.
This divine energy of mind, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it.
So this energy of Krishna is indeed divine energy. And Krishna says, this is my Maya. And it is very difficult to overcome this Maya. But simultaneously, Krishna also gives the solution. He says, Mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. That those who surrender unto me, they will cross beyond this Maya and come out of illusion. So this material energy is insurmountable, is huge. But if one surrenders to the Lord or Lord's representatives, the spiritual master, then one can overcome Maya just as if you are crossing a hoof scarf print. It becomes that easy. Now, there are two serious describers of Maya described in this verse, that one is divine and second is very difficult to overcome. Plus, of course, Krishna gives the process. Now, question will become that if Maya drives people to do bad things, so how come Maya is divine? The answer is that the absurdity in people's actions are not caused by Maya. Rather, all the stupidity that goes on in the material world is facilitated by Maya. The people's absurd actions are caused by people's own free will. To understand this with an example, say in a school or college, someplace there is a multiple choice exam. You have one question and four choices of the answers to pick the right answer. There's one right answer and three wrong answers. Now, teacher has provided the three wrong answers and one right answer. Plus, teacher has also provided education for choosing the right option. So it is up to the student to make the right choice. Student is responsible to study and to make the right choice. Student cannot blame the teacher that the teacher gave the wrong choices and the student simply picked the available options. No, that is not appropriate. The purpose of teacher is not to fail the student. Rather is to promote the student, to be able to judge what is right and what is wrong. And if the student fails, is because primarily the student does not study and the student does not understand. So the problem is not caused by Maya. Rather, the setup by which illusions are present in front of us is created by Maya, but it is we who choose to go into Maya, or it is we who choose to stay out of Maya. It is our free will. We have to use our free will properly. Each one of us have the power to stay out of Maya if we want. Now, this energy is called divine because the ultimate purpose it is serving is positive. Meaning, the purpose of exam is ultimately good. But for some students may get bad results if they fail because they have not studied. Because the energy is connected with Krishna, therefore this energy is considered divine. Now the second describer of Mayadevi is Duratyaya, that this energy is very difficult to overcome. Krishna says this my energy is insurmountable. An example to understand this is that a parent hires a strict teacher to discipline a disobedient child. Now, parent actually loves the child, but they also want the child to be disciplined. And in this example, Krishna is like the parent and the strict teacher is like Maya, and we all are the disobedient children. So the process to cross Maya is to surrender to Krishna. When one follows this process of surrender, one makes spiritual advancement very rapidly. And to understand about this Maya, I will give you an analogy of a dog guarding a house. So Maya Devi is not dog. I'm using an analogy of the dog to describe how Maya Devi makes us stay in the material world, as well as the same Maya Devi can help us get to spiritual world. So let's understand with the example of a dog. So a dog is guarding a house from not letting anyone inside the house. So the house is the spiritual world, and dog is like the Maya, and the house owner is Krishna. So the house owner controls the dog, just as Krishna controls Maya. So when anybody tries to enter the house, meaning anybody tries to enter the spiritual world, the dog is guarding the entrance, and the dog barks and does not let anybody in. Now, when the house owner's friend visits the house owner will tell the dog to not bark, but let the friend in. Similarly, when we surrender to Krishna, Krishna tells Maya to not trouble the devotee, rather to allow the devotee to come into the spiritual world. So when we all surrender to Krishna, the same trouble-giving Maya turns into helping the devotee cross over this insurmountable ocean of material existence. Now, here a question will become that what exactly is surrender? How do we actually surrender to Krishna? So I will play Chetan Chanda's lecture. It's a very important lecture, a short lecture for about 5 minutes. And each statement in this 5-minute short lecture is basically a striking point where he will explain that surrender is not passive. Rather, surrender is active. He'll give the example that Draupadi surrendering with hands up, yes, that is surrender. But Arjuna shooting arrows fiercely, that is also surrender, because Arjuna is following the instructions of Krishna. So it's very obvious that we have to surrender. But what actually surrender means, and how do we surrender? So it's all explained in this Chetan Chanda's lecture. So I will play this lecture, take notes, and then we will discuss.
Now we may wonder what exactly is surrender. How do we surrender? We'll discuss about surrender more in the 18th chapter when we talk about Sarvadharman Pratijamamekam Sharanam Vraja. But here suffice it to say that surrender is not passive. Surrender is active. Now, the Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks based on the scriptures about 6 elements of surrender. Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjana, rakshishyati te vishwaso, goktritve varanam tatha, atmanikshepa karpanye, shadavidha sharanagatihi. So he says that actually anukulyasya sankalpa and pratikulyasya varjana, accepting that which is favorable and rejecting that which is unfavorable, that is surrender. Accepting that which is favorable and rejecting that which is unfavorable. So what does this involve? It involves choice, constant conscientious choice. So that means how do I surrender to Krishna? Surrender doesn't mean, we have the quintessential example of surrender, Draupadi surrendering to Krishna. Krishna, help. She raising her heart and hands and surrendering. Yes, that is one way of surrendering. But that is not just the only way of surrendering. Even when Arjuna is fighting on the battlefield, with his full intelligence, full determination, shooting the arrows, that is also surrender. It is not that just Draupadi is raising her hands and surrender. Arjuna is shooting arrows intelligently and fiercely, ferociously. That is also surrender. How is that? Because surrender essentially means choosing the actions that take us towards Krishna and rejecting the actions that take us away from Krishna. So, for Draupadi, in that particular situation, when she was being dishonored, she tried her best. She tried to hold on to her sari, she tried to defend her honor. But when that didn't work, then what did she do? She surrendered to Krishna. So that is important. Now, we see that Arjuna also surrenders to Krishna at the start of the Bhagavad Gita when he says that Prichhami tvam dharma sammura chetaha. I ask you what I should do. So he is not necessarily raising up his hands to surrender, but he's folding his hands and asking Krishna for knowledge. But then when Arjuna starts shooting arrows, he's acting on Krishna's instructions, and that acting on Krishna's instructions is also surrender. So to understand about surrender, let's look at from the broad perspective, what is the basic principle of spiritual life? The basic principle of spiritual life is harmonizing our will with the divine will, with Krishna's will. So that harmonization can be sometimes be through activity and sometimes through outer inactivity, but inner deference to Krishna's will, inner surrender to Krishna's will. So that will vary how it will be externally expressed. So essentially surrender means giving up our will for accepting Krishna's will. Now how we will accept Krishna's will vary from time, place and circumstance. So that we cannot know in advance. Therefore what is important is we always be thinking what is anukul, what is pratikul. So that means when we do our sadhana diligently, through our sadhana also we are surrendering to Krishna. That means when we do our seva diligently, through that also we are surrendering to Krishna. So when we know that certain situations are going to tempt us, moving away from those situations, that is also surrender to Krishna. When we feel our senses getting agitated and we reject that agitation, we crush that agitation with determination, that is also surrender to Krishna. Surrender can come in many forms. Essentially for us, what we should focus on is anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulya varjana. Whatever is favorable accept, what is unfavorable reject. So much of what comprises surrender will be within the mind. Now within the mind, if we entertain thoughts that take us away from Krishna, if we fuel desires that take us away from Krishna, then we are not surrendering, we are actually rebelling against Krishna. We may not have any direct intention to rebel against Krishna, but essentially the result will be that we will be rebelling against Krishna. On the other hand, when we turn towards Krishna and surrender, that means we choose the thoughts and the desires that will take us closer to Krishna.
All right, and further point to add to surrender, Srila Prabhupada has said in one of the lecture that rejecting that is not prasadam is also surrender. Okay, let's hear from you all. What all did you hear from the lecture? And just to point out, the verse he was quoting at the start of the lecture, which anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulya varjana, is there in 18.66 purport, which is known as the Sharanagati, the 6 ways to surrender to Krishna. All right, let's hear from you all.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Go ahead, Hare Krishna.
So basically surrender means choosing action that takes us towards Krishna and rejecting everything that takes us away from Krishna and doing it actively and not doing it passively.
Okay, very good. Rest of you? Quickly. Chandra?
It can be very active, like.
Yeah, very good. Active, yeah. Surrender is not passive. Yeah, very good. Sama.
He said surrender can come in various forms. So when Draupadi was raising hands, that is also a kind of surrender. And when Arjun is fiercely shooting his arrow, that is also a kind of surrender.
Yeah, very good. So following instructions is surrender, and Arjuna is shooting arrows based on the instruction. Therefore, that is also surrender. So surrender is active. Very good. Tara.
Prabhuji, surrendering also means harmonizing our will with Krishna's will.
Very good. Harmonize. And this harmonization point is described at great length in Shisha Upanishad. We'll be discussing when we reach there. Very good. Rest of you?
Doing our daily sadhana is also surrender to Krishna.
Very good. Sadhana. So he also gave a solution that essentially what does surrender mean to us? Somebody, do you remember what did he say?
Prabhuji, accepting that which is favorable and rejecting that which is unfavorable.
Yeah, very good. Correct. So he said, Anukulyase sankalpa, patikulyase varjanam. So this is the Bhaktivinoda Thakur Sharnagati verse. The 6 items, the first 2 items, Anukulyase sankalpa means accept what is favorable for bhakti, and patikulyase varjanam means reject what is unfavorable for bhakti. That's how we should live and function on our day-to-day basis to progress step by step towards full surrender. Questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. When we desire to surrender, but then we don't follow that desire properly, it is because our surrender is not true?
Yeah, so your surrender is partial. So Krishna says in 4.11, prapadyanti, that he says is a step-by-step process. Somebody may be able to surrender 100%. For some, surrender will start with small steps and you keep growing. So it will vary in terms of your commitment of how much you are surrendered. And if you are only partially surrendered, well, then partially you are in Maya. Then you will keep fluctuating like a pendulum between one end of wanting to enjoy the material world and other end wanting to reject the material world. So it will vary on the degree of surrender will vary according to your commitment. Abhishek Prabhu.
Thank you.
So I will repeat my point that I stated earlier, that the importance of completing spiritual endeavor and listening to Srila Prabhupada lecture, that if you don't follow this, then you are not developing the required first quality of discipline. Rather, you are developing a dangerous mentality of whatever. So following the instructions of spiritual master and satisfying spiritual master is the only way to satisfy Krishna. So I am not a spiritual master, but this our Bhakti Vriksha group, our Bhakti classes are our practice ground, so that we can endeavor without worrying about failures, so that when we are ready to surrender to spiritual master and ready and prepared to follow his instructions, we are trying to prepare ourselves. But if you don't endeavor here in our practice ground, well, will become a huge challenge for you to follow spiritual master's instructions. So practice, endeavor. This is our practice ground. Without worrying, oh, what will happen if I fail? Don't worry about anything, just endeavor, whatever is possible. Janisha has a question.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So as mentioned earlier, surrender means accepting the favorable and rejecting the unfavorable. So is this favorable and unfavorable based on the Krishna's? Also, how do we know if it's favorable or unfavorable?
Yeah.
And
Let me
yes.
answer this. Yeah. And then you can ask the second question. So he described anukulyase sankalpa, patikulyase varjanam. So whatever activity you are doing in the material world, a simple example to understand is, say a friend comes and tells you, let's go to watch a movie. Now, it's not necessarily breaking a regulator principle simply by going to a movie. But when you come back after watching the movie, your mind is little disturbed because your mind is entangled in what all went on in the movie. So that activity becomes unfavorable for bhakti if you look through the activity. So you should actually reject this activity. So anukulyase sankalpa, pratikulyase varjanam is the principle we should follow on a day-to-day basis every minute to determine, is this activity taking me closer to Krishna, closer to bhakti? Then I will do it. If this activity is taking me away from Krishna, then I will reject it. Janisha?
Okay, Prabhuji. In Nepal and India, there is a thing like a Bali Pratha, where we sacrifice animal to the god, and people believe that it is something that we are surrendering to the goddess. Is this perception is right or not? Because they think that it is favorable, and they think they are
Absolutely
surrendering.
incorrect. Yeah, it is this process of sacrificing animal is absolutely incorrect process. The sacrifice of animals that is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's there in Canto 4, should be verse number 4 of, I will tell you the chapter in a minute. The process of sacrifice, which was there back then, this process was not meant to eat animals or to kill the animal. Rather, the sacrifice process of putting animals in the sacrifice was for the brahmanas to practice their mantras so that the animal can get a new life. So what they used to do is they used to take an old animal which was anyway about to die, and the brahmana will chant the mantras, and immediately through that fire sacrifice and through that mantra chanting, the animal gets a new better body right away. So the purpose of the animal sacrifice was for the brahmanas to practice whether they are able to chant the mantras properly so that the result is obvious. Because if you don't chant the mantras properly, then you get a wrong result. Now, just as say in material world, say somebody is trying to become a doctor and he's doing an operation for the first time, and there is a senior doctor also to rectify this student doctor if he does something wrong. Similarly, those brahmanas used to chant the mantras, and if they would chant something incorrectly, then there are senior brahmanas to rectify so that the animal does not lose the life. The animal actually gets a new life and a better body right away. So this animal sacrifice, wherever in the world it goes on, is absolutely nonsense. This is all concocted by people who want to satisfy their taste. And the Srimad Bhagavatam reference for what I described about animal sacrifice to get the animal a new body is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 4, verse number 6. Janisha?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Everybody on the same page? Questions, comments, realizations? So, I'm pretty sure all of you pray to Krishna. So, question becomes, do I need to pray to Krishna? And if I'm praying to Krishna, what exactly am I praying to Krishna for? Anybody? What do you pray to Krishna for? Or what you should be praying to Krishna for?
For more bhakti.
All right, very good. Rest of you, what you should be praying to Krishna for?
To make right choice in order to reach nearer to Krishna.
Okay, very good. So both correct answers. So I will also answer that. I should pray to Krishna not for Krishna to say yes to my desires. Rather, I should pray to Krishna to get the strength to say yes to Krishna's plan, to say yes to Krishna's will. I will repeat this statement. I should pray to Krishna not for Krishna to say yes to my desires. Rather, I should pray to Krishna to get the strength to say yes to Krishna's plan, to say yes to Krishna's will. All right. Now, this material nature is inferior energy. And we all souls are marginal energy, and we all souls are superior to material energy. And above all of us is still higher energy, which is spiritual energy, which is above everything. So Jiva, we all souls are known as marginal energy because we can either go to lower spiritual energy, meaning we can either go under Maya or we can choose to go under spiritual energy and go above our material desires. So here a question comes up that if material nature is inferior, does it make sense, or how is it possible for the inferior material energy to overcome the superior individual soul? Anybody wants to know the answer to this? Anybody knows the answer to this? Shivatsa Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, by the will of the individual living entity.
By will what?
By the free will.
Yeah, you are correct that by free will you can either go under Maya or under spiritual energy. My question is, how is the inferior material nature able to overcome the superior individual soul?
Sinful activity.
Yeah, but still the material nature is inferior. So how is inferior material nature able to overcome the superior soul?
Don't know, Prabhu.
I think because Maya is dominating the soul, so the soul remains ignorant, and there is no surrendering to Krishna. So maybe that's why it's able to overcome.
You are correct about ignorance, but my point still stands that it still is an inferior energy. How can an inferior energy overcome a superior energy?
Its energy is always active. It can go either way.
Yes, you are correct. So we are also energies. We can also go either way.
So if there is senses and are attracted to the Maya faster than the superior, I guess. And with discipline and detachment is not there.
All right. So Abhishek Prabhu has one point correct about that soul is very tiny. So let me answer that. One point to understand is that material nature cannot act by itself, meaning material nature is acting under the guidance of Krishna, meaning material nature is connected to Krishna, meaning material nature is getting its power from Krishna. Another point is that material nature is full of ignorance, and I think somebody answered about ignorance. So ignorance point is also correct. And the important point is about the size of material nature. So we are, as souls, we are very tiny, like a drop of water. And material nature is huge. The size of material nature overpowers the tiny soul. And an example to understand this is that, say there is an ant, very tiny ant, and we are like the soul, a very tiny soul. And if you put a stone on top of an ant, the ant will die. So material nature is not like the stone, but on top of an ant, say in the middle of a room, you put the ant in the middle, and the whole room, you put it a very fluffy cotton, which is full in the whole room. The ant is right in the middle. Now the ant is not going to die because of the cotton. It's just a fluffy cotton. But the ant gets entangled in the cotton because the size of the cotton, which is surrounding the whole room, is so huge. Therefore, even though the material energy is inferior, but it overpowers the superior soul because of the size and because the material nature is getting the energy from Krishna. Everybody on the same page? Srivastava Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, I have a little bit of a, I'm not maybe understanding the concept properly. Now, if the individual spirit soul, even if he or she is entangled by the material energy, if they are not willing to subscribe to it, then will they still be overpowered, even though quantitatively it is much more? But even a small spiritual entity is emanating is more potent, correct, Prabhu? Because it is.
Correct. So it is so if the spiritual, meaning the soul, is not wanting to go under material nature, then material nature does not overpower. The material world is 25% of the total creation, and which is in Srimad Bhagavatam is described as Ekpad. Ekpad means 25%, and the rest of the creation means rest of the existence is Tripad, means 3 times, which is 75%. And in the 25% of creation, which is material worlds, from the total number of individual souls, only 10% are there in the material world. Rest of the 90% are there in the spiritual world, they didn't say, I want to go under material nature. So material nature does not touch them. It is we used our free will incorrectly. Therefore, we came under the material nature, and therefore material nature overpowers. Does that answer your first question?
Yes, Prabhu. So the only way to get out is to use our free will again to choose spiritual life.
Yeah. And Krishna said in 7.14, Mam eva ye prapadyante, mayam etam tarantite. And I explained with the example of a dog that when you surrender, the same dog, meaning the same Mayadevi, will actually help you to get into the house, meaning get into the spiritual world.
Yes, got it, Prabhu. Thank you.
Everybody on the same page? So there's a question mentioned in the chat that about the animal sacrifice that I was describing, that who checks where the new incarnation of those animals go? So in the example that I gave, that the animal right away gets a new body. It's not that the animal has to wait 6, 8, 9 months or whatever number of months that life form takes. No, they take an old animal which was about to die for the brahmanas to practice their mantras, whether they are able to chant the mantras properly, and immediately, if the mantras was executed properly, immediately that animal gets transformed into a new, better body. And then the follow-up question is that if the brahmanas fail, then do they become sinners? So I explained that these are student brahmanas. So just as in the material world, say a student doctor is trying to do an operation for the first time, there'll be a senior doctor and he will correct. Similarly, there'll be a senior brahmana who will correct the mantra if the brahmana student is doing some mantra incorrectly, so that the animal does not die and get burnt in the sacrifice. The animal still comes out properly in a new form right away. So this is a practice for the brahmana. Does that answer the inquiry?
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. So chapter 7, then verse number 15 is the second subsection, that those who do not surrender to Krishna. Dhara, verse number 15 translation.
Hare Krishna, Guruji. Text 15. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me.
So 4 kinds of people do not surrender to Krishna. In the Sanskrit of the verse, there are the Sanskrit names: Muda, Naradama, Maya, Aprita Jnana, and Asuram Bhava Ashrita. I'll explain these 4. So Muda, that means foolish, like a donkey. So some of you are book distributors. When you go out on book distribution, what's the most common excuse that you get, most common response that you get when you try to show them Bhagavad Gita or other books? Somebody, those who are book distributors?
No time.
No time, too busy, exactly. So this is one of the category in the 4 kinds of people who do not surrender to Krishna. That Muda is foolish, working like a donkey. That foolish worker will untiringly continue to act in the flickering mundane world, but will have little to no time to hear about eternal spirituality. And that eternal spirituality actually moves the material world, but the Muda is not interested to know about spirituality. So activity involves some level of talent, some level of intelligence. But the activity of such people in the material world is in a wrong direction. The point of mudha or donkey example is that people work hard simply for animalistic pleasures when they don't actually have to work that hard. So mudha is caught up working hard for sense pleasure, and that sense pleasure is actually available to animals also. Then the second category is naradama. Adama means lowest and nara means human beings. So person who is lowest among human beings. Now this refers to those human beings that have no spiritual inclination. What makes a human being as human is their spiritual potential. Now difference between mudha and naradama is that mudha may have some spiritual inclination, but they are busy, caught up in sensual pleasure. But therefore, they don't give time for spiritual inclination. On the other hand, for naradama, the spirituality is so put aside to the corner as if it is not present at all. And the third category is maya aprita jnana, that those who follow Vedas, thinking that the goal of Vedas is simply sense gratification, and then there are those who do not follow Vedas and use their intelligence just for material improvement. So they have knowledge, but the purpose of knowledge is taken away by Maya, is stolen by Maya. Therefore, the third category is Maya Aprita Jnana. And then the fourth category is Asuram Bhavam Ashrita. Now, the conclusions of Maya Aprita Jnana, the third category, may be misleading. Their conclusion may be anti-devotional, but Maya Aprita Jnanis don't have any agenda against God. In their interpretation, they may not know fully about God. So there's Maya Aprita Jnana. So they have some misunderstanding. While Asura Bhavam Ashrita, they have deep envy against God. These are the four kinds of people who do not surrender to Krishna. And then verse number 16, which is the subsection 3 of section 2. This subsection 3 is verses 16 to 19, those who surrender to Krishna. In verse number 16, Krishna describes the four kinds of people who come to Krishna. So very important to understand the difference between 15 and 16 verse. In verse number 15, it says four kinds of people who do not surrender to Krishna. And in verse number 16, the word surrender is not there. Rather, verse number 16 says four kinds of people who start rendering service to Krishna. So let's read verse number 16 translation. Follow me, verse number 16 translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. O best among the Bharatas, four kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desirer of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the absolute.
So Krishna does not use the word surrender here in 16. Rather, he says bhajante, render service. He begins the process of worship. They begin the process of devotional service. And eventually, as they continue devotional service, as they get purified, they will come to the point of surrender. But right now, these four kinds of people, they are doing bhajante, rendering service. They are beginning the process of worship. So the four kinds are artho, means distress. It's not depressed, it's distress. There's difference. Gajendra is an example of distress. Then jigyasu, inquisitive, means Example is Sonaka Rishi from Srimad Bhagavatam, that they were inquisitive. They wanted to know more about Krishna Katha. Then Artha Arthi means wealth seeker. Dhruv Maharaj is an example for wealth seeker. And then Gyani, the four Kumaras. So the four Kumaras had impersonal aspect of the knowledge, and then they came to the personal aspect. So majority of who come to Krishna, they come because of some distress, including myself. Now, few devotees across various batches have had offline conversations with me that why is there distress? So we have discussed this in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4 also, that if there was no distress in the material world, we all will become so comfortable in the material world, and we will tell Krishna that Krishna, you do your pastimes in the spiritual world, and we will do our pastimes here in the material world. You just keep providing us what we require in the material world for our enjoyment, and then we will never go back to the spiritual world. So distress is meant to make us wake up that we souls do not belong in this material world, just as fish cannot be out of water. Similarly, we souls cannot live in the material world. We do not belong here. We belong in the spiritual world. And because we are in the material world, but we are not supposed to be, therefore, we are given this suit of body and mind, just as humans, when they go in space, they cannot survive in space, therefore they put on astronaut suits. So our body is like the astronaut suit that we have on top of us as souls, so that we can live in the material world. But actually, we cannot live in the material world. We are like the fish out of water. So these four categories, they have talent, and the talent is piously directed. These four categories of people are in the mode of goodness. They may not have surrendered fully, or even though they may not have surrendered at all, but they have started worshipping Krishna and they have started rendering services. So Srila Prabhupada explains that these four categories of people in 7.16 who start rendering service, they are not pure devotees, but they are potential pure devotees, that they will come to the level of pure devotion. By the association of pure devotees, these four kinds of people will also rise to the level of pure devotion. Ritu, if you can read 7.16 purport, paragraph 1, 2, 3, faster pace. And you can skip the Sanskrit if you like, or you can recite also, from Nectar of Devotion, the Sanskrit also.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Unlike the miscreants, there are adherents of the regulative principles of the scriptures, and they are called Supritana, or those who obey the rules and regulations of scriptures, the moral and social laws, and are more or less devoted to the Supreme Lord. Out of these, there are four classes of men: those who are sometimes distressed, those who are in need of money, those who are sometimes inquisitive, and those who are sometimes searching after knowledge of the absolute truth. These persons come to the Supreme Lord for devotional service under different conditions. These are not pure devotees because they have some aspiration to fulfill an exchange for devotional service. Pure devotional service is without aspiration and without desire for material profit. The Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu defines pure devotion thus: one should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. When these four kinds of persons come to the Supreme Lord for devotional service and are completely purified by the association of a pure devotee, they also become pure devotees. As far as the miscreants are concerned, for them, devotional service is very difficult because their lives are selfish, irregular, and without spiritual goals. But even some of them, by chance, when they come in contact with a pure devotee, also become pure devotees. Those who are always busy with fruitive activities come to the Lord in material distress and at that time associate with pure devotees and become in their distress devotees of the Lord. Those who are simply frustrated also come sometimes to associate with the pure devotees and become inquisitive to know about God. Similarly, when the dry philosophers are frustrated in every field of knowledge, they sometimes want to learn of God and they come to the Supreme Lord to render devotional service and thus transcend knowledge of the impersonal Brahman and the localized Paramatma and come to the personal conception of Godhead by the grace of the Supreme Lord or his pure devotee. On the whole, when the distressed, the inquisitive, the seekers of the knowledge, and those who are in need of money are free from all material desires. And when they fully understand that material remuneration has nothing to do with spiritual improvement, they become pure devotees. As long as such a purified stage is not attained, devotees in transcendental service to the Lord are tainted with fruitive activities, the search for mundane knowledge, etc. So one has to transcend all this before one can come to the stage of pure devotional service. Hare Krishna.
Questions, comments, realizations?
I have a question.
Yeah,
So,
Madan.
children born in devotee family, they automatically become devotees. So what category they go in?
So it is not automatic. There are many devotees, including some here in the Toronto temple also, that the parents are devotees, initiated devotees, but the children are not. So it's not by default. It is individual will that they have to use, that they have to start rendering service, and they will fall in one of the categories of the four kinds. Matan Prabhu?
Okay, thank you.
Srivatsa Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. I had a comment that spiritual progression is not like a barter system, give and take. So you have to be authentically seeking, and only then can you progress.
Yeah, very good. Correct point. All right. So this discussion about these four kinds of pious people who start rendering devotional service to Krishna, the discussion will continue up to verse number 19. Priya, verse number 17 translation. Priya Darshini.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Of these, the one who is in full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best. For I am very dear to him and he is dear to me. Hare Krishna.
So among these four people, Jnani, who is constantly engaged in devotional service, has one-pointed devotion, is the best. All others are coming for fulfillment of material desire, hence their devotion is mishra, mixed, is not very elevated. So Jnani understands that there is some higher truth beyond this material world, and I want to know what is that truth. I want to develop knowledge of that truth, and I ultimately want to connect with that absolute truth. Therefore, the Jnani is the best. So that the Jnani's devotion is not occasional, but their devotion is constant. So here Krishna is not referring to impersonal Jnani. Therefore, Krishna uses the word Eke Bhakti, meaning one-pointed devotion. And what makes our intelligence split and not one pointed is because of material desires. We have discussed this earlier also. So here's a question for you all. All of you try to answer. So we discussed these 4 categories of people in 7.16 who start rendering devotional service to Krishna. So from these 4, who will be dear to Krishna? Everybody, please try to answer. Quickly.
Prabhuji, all of them.
Okay. Srivatsa Prabhu.
Initially, I was going to say one who is searching for the knowledge of the Absolute.
All right. Janisha also says, like Chanda, that all are equal. Okay. Rest of you? From these 4 categories, who will be dear to Krishna?
One who does not expect anything.
All these 4 kinds of people are expecting something. So who will be dear to Krishna? Madan Prabhu.
So one who does not expect anything,
No,
always does.
It doesn't apply. All these 4 kinds of people have something or the other. They are not pure devotees. From these 4 categories of people, who will be dear to Krishna?
Everyone will be dear to Krishna, Prabhuji.
All right. Rest of you? I thought it was a simple question.
Prabhuji, maybe whoever does the devotional service properly.
So everybody is doing devotional service. It's just not pure. All these 4 kinds of categories are doing devotional service.
In that case, maybe all of them.
Okay. And one answer says Gyani. Srivatsa Prabhu likes my curveball question. My innocuous, seemingly innocuous, open-ended questions are meant to make you think. Very good. Anybody last wants to try?
Prabhuji, who wants to be in the knowledge of absolute truth because he has come only to know Sri Krishna. Like there's nothing more to know than just that.
So you are
and
saying
he will not
Gyani.
waver.
So Paulam, you are saying
The
Gyani.
who wants to get to that knowledge. Prabhuji, one question. Does Gyani here mean that one who wants to learn, who knows, but who wants to
yeah, I already described that.
knowledge?
Yeah, I already described that this Gyani does not refer to impersonal Jnana. Rather, Krishna says Eke Bhakti means one who is focused on devotion. Okay,
Then
let me
Prabhuji
answer.
only that person.
All right.
Thank
Pratyush
you.
Prabhu also says the inquisitive. All right, let me answer. Krishna will go on to describe that all these 4 categories of people are magnanimous. And why we will understand from the verse 7.18. Let's see who can read. Pratyush Prabhu, you can read that 7.18 translation.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and most perfect goal.
So, Krishna is so hungry for devotion that someone comes to offer to him, even if that devotion is mixed with material desires, even if that devotion is motivated with something else, it does not matter to Krishna. Therefore, he goes on to say that all these 4 categories of people are magnanimous because they came to Krishna. That when someone is looking for something and someone gives that something to this person, so this person will say, oh, you are so charitable. So it is actually the large-heartedness of the Lord that he calls even the mixed devotees as magnanimous, because instead of going somewhere else, say to demigods, to satisfy their desires, they came to Krishna. Therefore, Krishna calls all of them as magnanimous. Parth Prabhu, you can read verse number 19 translation.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is such a great soul is very rare.
So after many lifetimes, when a person becomes knowledgeable, they surrender unto me. They understand that Lord Vasudeva is everything and that there is no reality higher than Lord Vasudeva. Such a great soul is very rare. So Krishna is talking about a progression from one level of reality to higher level of reality. So Krishna is referring to 4 kinds of people from 7.16 who come to Krishna to render devotional service. And then bhajante to prapadyante. So bhajante means start rendering devotional service. And prapadyante means surrender. There is a progression. So I briefly described few minutes ago to Abhishek Prabhu about 4.11. Krishna has also said this, the word prapadyante. That as people surrendered unto me, I reciprocate accordingly. So if somebody is surrendering 10%, Krishna's reciprocation will be 10%. If somebody is surrendering 100%, Krishna's reciprocation will be 100%. This is described in 4.11. You can read later by yourself. So bhajante to prapadyante. Prapadyante means surrender, is progression. For some can take several lifetimes, depending on the intensity of practice. Exactly what Abhishek Prabhu was asking is answered right here in 7.19. So, what takes them to prapadyante over a period of time is that they understand Lord Vasudeva is everything. By rendering devotional service, by associating with devotees, they get purified, they get knowledge, and they understand that Lord Vasudeva is everything. Therefore, they come to the point of surrendering. Chandar, that's a question.
Yes, Prabhuji. I just want to ask you, like even the mode of goodness, the Krishna connection sometimes is not there. And when you say the bhajante prapadyante, how many percentage that will be in the mode of goodness?
The mode of goodness is not pure devotion. Mode of goodness devotion is also mixed devotion. Yes, you may be steady in your devotion. Yes, we have to come to mode of goodness, but then we have to also transcend the mode of goodness. Chandra?
So from going level up from the mode of goodness, like as you're saying, if the devotion is 10%, Krishna will be 10%, and like how to increase this, what makes it go up?
So the whole process is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, which we discussed in 7.1. So there are a series of verses given from in 7.1 purport, which are there from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.16 to 22. So process given is that when you surrender to a spiritual master, take initiation, do devotional service under the guidance of a spiritual master, then you go above the modes, you develop the ruchi to hear Vasudeva, and you progress that way. So a whole process is given in 1.2.16 to 22, as well as a live example for this is given in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, with the example of Srila Narad Muni. So Narad Muni, in his previous life, was an ordinary 5-year-old Shudra boy, and he followed this process, and he goes on to become a pure devotee that we today know as Srila Narad Muni. Chandar?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Everybody on the same page? Questions, comments, realizations? All right. So now section 2, subsection 4 is verses 20 to 25. Title is Those Who Surrender to Something Other Than Krishna, meaning those who surrender to demigods. So Krishna will explain that those who do not reject him and simultaneously those who do not surrender to him, rather they go on to surrender to somebody else, meaning they go on to surrender to demigods, he will describe about them. Now, we have already discussed demigod worship at great length when we discussed Bhagavad Gita 4.12 verse. And in that discussion, I already included the demigod verses from this chapter 7, verses 20 to 23, as well as demigod verses from Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, as well as many more verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, today, in the continuation and in the context of the discussion, I will only briefly describe few key points about demigod worship rather than going in detail. You all can just simply listen to the demigod worship discussion from 4.12. It's a standalone 2-hour long discussion where I have references for everything. Right now, I will only briefly describe. So let's first read verses 20 to 23 translations, and then I will briefly describe. Samma, 20 to 23 translations.
Verse 20, those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Verse 21, I am in everyone's heart as the supersoul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. 22. Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires, but in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. 23. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet.
So I will briefly describe about demigods. The first principle I want all of us to remember is do not disrespect demigods, because demigods are devotees. Demigods are devotees of Krishna. All demigods are at the same Jiva Tattva level like you and me. Just as in an office, all are employees. Some are regular staff and some are managers and directors. Similarly, demigods are at the same Jiva Tattva level like you and me. It's just that demigods have administrative powers to manage the universe, just as in an office there are some managers and directors. Now, demigod is a position, just as you have Prime Minister of Canada or Prime Minister of India. Similarly, all these names that we know of demigods, they are not persons, they are positions, like the Prime Minister is a position. And in these positions, different persons are occupying this position, just as, say, a Prime Minister of a country, say right now in India, Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister. Previously, it was somebody else. In future, will be somebody else. Similarly, say you have Ganesh. So Ganesh or Ganpati is a position. A particular soul is occupying that position. and in the next cycle of creation could be somebody else. And this example is given in Srimad Bhagavatam about Indra to explain this point, that how demigod is a position. So Indra as a demigod comes up very frequently in Srimad Bhagavatam. So every place in Srimad Bhagavatam, it says Indra, but actually the person is different in many of those situations, because those situations happen in different yugas, where the person occupying the post of Indra then leaves that post, and then another person is occupying the post of Indra. Now, all these demigods are appointed by Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. By doing Krishna worship does not mean you are doing either Krishna worship or you are doing demigod worship. No, rather, the correct understanding is that Krishna worship includes demigod worship. Krishna is the root of a tree, and all of us, including demigods, are parts and parcels of Krishna, meaning are parts and parcels or leaves and branches of a tree. So when you water the root Krishna, meaning when you satisfy Krishna by Krishna worship, all parts of Krishna, including demigods, are automatically satisfied. You don't need to worship demigods separately. Demigods do not have any authority to give you any benediction unless sanctioned by Krishna. We just read that in one of the verses. So further we will discuss in chapter 9 that actually Krishna worship is easier compared to demigod worship. There are different processes to follow for each of the millions of demigods that we have. Meaning, if you want to worship Ganesh, there is one particular process to follow. If you want to worship Durga, there is a different process to follow. If you want to worship Shiva, there is a different process to follow. Not all of us even know that there were different processes, and we are just worshiping all of them in one particular process, not realizing that we are not going to get any benefit by just worshiping in whichever way we think is right. Therefore, there is no need to worship the demigods separately. Janisha, hold your question. I will come back to you in a minute. Now, the result of demigod worship is temporary and insignificant benediction. What did I say? The result of demigod worship is temporary and insignificant benediction. Bhagavad Gita 9.25 describes which states the result of demigod worship is that one will attain the planets of demigods, such as heaven. But demigods, meaning heaven, is still in the material world. And Bhagavad Gita 8.16 states that every place in this material world is a place of misery, including heaven is a place of misery. Whether you are in heaven, whether you are on earth, or whether you are in hell, all are places of misery. To understand this example of heaven, now heaven is actually very toxic for the soul, because there is so much enjoyment in heaven. The soul gets so much entangled in wanting to enjoy, and they don't pursue spirituality. And further, there's no guarantee that after their spiritual credits, meaning the pious credits, is exhausted, the pious credit that took them to heaven, when the pious credit is exhausted, they have to come back. So depending on how they lived in heaven, human life is not guaranteed. They may get a lower species life or go to lower planets. So going to heaven is like going to a resort. Just as in a material world, you pay money and you go to a resort, say for a week, and when your money is exhausted, then you come back to your regular job and home. Similarly, because of pious credit, one gets to go to heaven to enjoy, but when the pious credits are finished, they have to come back to earth. We discussed this in 6.41 and 42. Now, to understand this with an analogy, that a child does not know the value of $1,000. Child gives the $1,000 to a shopkeeper to get one chocolate. And therefore, in one of the purport, Prabhupada says demigod worshippers are less intelligent because they do not know the value of human form of life. Human form of life can grant you Goloko Vrindavan, a place of eternal bliss, permanently end miseries. But I am using the human form of life to attain temporary and insignificant heaven. Just as a child, not knowing the value of $1,000, uses $1,000 to buy one small chocolate. Now, demigod worship will keep you in this material world. Demigod worship is like buy one, get three free. What did I say? Yes, demigod worship is buy one, get three free. So buy one, get three free refers to, by demigod worship, you continue repeated birth and death cycle. Means by demigod worship, you are buying birth in the material world and you get the three things free, meaning you get disease, old age, and death as free. And therefore, Krishna goes on to describe in Bhagavad Gita 9.23 with the words avidhi purvakam, that demigod worship is done wrongly. Therefore, in 9.23, Krishna says Krishna does not approve demigod worship. Now, a question will come up. So, to whom do I have to go for my material desires to get fulfilled? And there's a very famous verse in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10. We have read this verse earlier. I will recite. Akama sarva kamava moksha kama udarati tivrena bhakti yogena yajate purusham param. The verse says that whether one has desires, whether one has no desires, whether one desires for liberation, either way, one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with all his means. He says, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajate Purusham Param. And then Sridhar Swami, a prominent Acharya in disciplic succession, he says that when demigods fulfill my desires, then why does it say here to get the desires fulfilled by Supreme Lord Krishna? The answer is that when you are worshipping Supreme Lord Krishna, that approach is free of disturbances. Demigod worship is not free of disturbances. Plus, the best result that you can attain by demigod worship is heaven. Well, heaven is still a place of misery. Heaven is actually very toxic for the soul. So what exactly? There isn't really any gain. And another reason is that asking Supreme Personality of Godhead for devotional service is good. And even for material desires, you go to Supreme Personality of Godhead. This allows to enter into bhakti. Demigod worship does not open the doors of bhakti. And we anyway discussed that you cannot get any benediction from demigods without sanction of the Supreme Lord. So why are you going to via agent? Just go directly to the Supreme Lord. Now the last question that I'm going to mention about this demigod and then pause and then we'll hear from Chaitanya Chandas. Now question may come up that demigod worship is given in Vedas. Krishna is author of the Vedas. Then why did Krishna give this demigod worship process if we should not follow the demigod worship process? The answer is demigod worship is given in Vedas so that you can meet a pure devotee and come to Krishna worship. It is easier to move one step at a time from animal life to karma kanda. So almost all of you have populated the yoga ladder chart. That lowest is animal life. You are not even in the spirituality circle. And the first step, the lowest step in the spirituality circle is karma kanda. So if you ask anybody from animal life to jump to bhakti, well, that's too big of a jump. He may not take up at all. But if you tell him to take gradual process, that first come to karma kanda, demigod worship is karma kanda, that you live in the material world according to scriptures and you have a regulated life, that is karma kanda. And then you can progress little by little from karma kanda to karma yoga to bhakti. And the last point, somebody will say that, well, if I stop demigod worship, well, then will the demigods be angry at me? And we have discussed this from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.16.20, that actually demigods will be pleased if you do devotional service to Krishna. The example is given that just as in the material world prison, the jailer gets pleased when the prisoners become obedient. Similarly, when you do devotional service to Krishna, demigods will actually become pleased that you are actually moving to Krishna. So I will pause here. I will only briefly describe these points about demigod worship. We'll pause here for questions, comments, realizations. We'll start with Janisha.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So I have a question. So in Western, people worship Allah or Jesus Christ. So are they being ignorant, or isn't it unfair to them because Krishna was not introduced in those lands? So
So Christianity, so worship to Jesus. So you read Signs of Self-Realization, depending on the version that you get. One of the version should be page 116. One of the chapter is titled, Jesus and Krishna are identical, meaning Jesus is Son of God. So those who follow Christianity properly, they will also go back home to Godhead. The challenge with Christianity is that they don't have authorized purports of their Bible. Therefore, there are so many different versions of Bible where ordinary people are writing comments on Bible and they are interpreting by themselves. One of the key commandment of Bible is thou shalt not kill. And Christians, to satisfy their tongue's taste, they have misinterpreted thou shalt not kill to mean that the soul in human body is different than the soul in animal body, and it is okay to kill animal soul and eat the animal soul. The thou shalt not kill only applies to humans. Well, that's not correct. This is somebody misinterpreting just because they want to satisfy their tongue's taste. We have clearly studied in Bhagavad Gita that all souls are equal. Krishna goes on to say in 15.7, Mama eva amsha jiva loke, that all souls are my eternal parts and parcels. Janisha, does that help you?
So people who are worshipping Jesus Christ after they die, where they will go?
If they do it properly, they can go back home to Godhead. So if you look at the high levels, at a high level, if you look at Bhagavad Gita and Bible and Quran, at a high level, all these scriptures have the same to attain love of God. Processes are different. So if somebody is following Christianity properly, not misinterpreting thou shalt not kill, that I will go and kill animals, but they following thou shalt not kill means not be meat eaters, as well as other processes also, then they will go back home to Godhead. Janisha?
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you.
Srivatsa?
Prabhuji, I have a contention against that. Because what is the point? I was raised, what is the point of the spiritual process? What is the point of learning? What is the point of discerning between qualitative and quantitative? When it is quite clear to see that they're dogmatic, they're enforced as dogma. And since the advent of the Kali Yuga, they have taken birth. I don't know whether there is references to them in the Bhavishya Purana and all these kinds of things, but they are basically matrix paradigms which are indications of decadence. So, and also not to mention they have karmically, they have a lot of, they have engaged in a lot of religious wars, this, that. They've carved out the material world as we know today. So how can we put all this under the carpet and say that, yes, the ancient process that is present here of the Vaishnavas is equivalent to the decree of someone who's sitting in the Vatican or something? He gives a decree and everyone is following and we are going to go to the same place.
Yeah, so I
This
said,
is,
I said if Christians follow it properly. Right now,
but there is,
Christians are not following properly. I fully agree with you. So Janisha's question was, if somebody follows Jesus properly, where will they go? So Jesus has given Bible and he has given commandments. Jesus is Son of God. We'll discuss this in 18.66, where Krishna says,
but
Sarva
this is their
dharman
proposition.
parityaja. Let me
This is
finish.
their proposition that he is the Son
Let
of
me
God.
finish.
I reject it.
Let me finish.
No, Prabhuji,
Krishna
this is,
says, but let me finish. Krishna says in 18.66, you can surrender to me or you can surrender to my representatives. And over the years, over the millenniums, different representatives have come. Jesus is representative of God as Son of God. The challenge with Christianity is they don't follow properly, therefore none of the Christians will attain spiritual destinations. So Janisha's question was, if they would have had followed properly.
but how can they follow when the very nature of it is to distort?
Yeah.
Christianity's very nature is distortion.
Yeah,
It is dogma.
that I understand. Majority of Christians are on a wrong path. I understand that part.
Okay, got it.
We are saying in principle.
In principle, yes.
Right? If you follow properly. So Jesus is Son of God. Right? If you follow Jesus properly, not misinterpret, thou shalt not kill to be separate for human soul and animal soul. No, that is not thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill. What Jesus said was, don't kill anybody, even a tiny ant. Then you are following Jesus properly, then you will attain spiritual world. But because Bible and Christian path, they don't have authorized purports to the original verses, and everybody is interpreting, and therefore all this chaos is what it is right now. Does that answer, Srivastava Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay. There's a point made in the chat which says will not be able to. Oh, okay. All right. Rest of you, questions, comments, realizations before I play Chitran Chanda's lectures on demigod.
Hare Krishna. So the demigod worshippers, they worship demigod. They realize they are worshipping demigod. They think everybody is same. So they are in the same result they get, whether you worship Krishna or Shiva or Ganapati. That's what their mentality. Yeah. They don't understand.
Yeah, you are correct. They have this misunderstanding that everything is same. But Krishna clearly says in 9.25 that those who worship demigods, they go to the abode of demigods, which is heaven, which is in the material world. And those who worship Krishna, they attain spiritual destination, they attain Krishna. All right. So I'm going to play Chaitanya Chanda's lecture here about demigod worship. Take notes and we will come back to discuss. So I played this same lectures earlier when we discussed the demigod worship, but in the context, I'm playing them again.
So those who worship devatas, they go to devatas. Mat bhakta yanti mamapi. And those who worship me come back to me, Krishna is telling over here. So in this way, he is explaining the difference between different kinds of worship, different levels of worship. So antavat tufanam desham. When we worship devatas, actually, demigods are temporary, demigods' abodes are temporary, demigods' benedictions are temporary, and the demigod worshippers, they themselves are temporary. Yes, as souls they are eternal, but whatever attainments they get, as long as they are existing at the material level, their existences themselves remain material, temporary. Our bodily existence is temporary. So the demigod worshippers, when they get elevated, what is the ultimate fruit that they can get? Demigod worshippers, the ultimate fruit that they can get is by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Somehow they get elevated from demigod worship to the worship of the Supreme Lord. That is the ultimate blessing that they can get. And instead of being sakam, they become nishkam in the worship of the Supreme Lord. Or otherwise, at the material level, the benefit that they may get is they may move from the worship of, move from materialistic consciousness to pious materialism. And then they may go to the demigod abode where they will live with the demigods. But that is also not permanent. The demigods' abodes themselves are temporary. So even if they attain those abodes, they will be temporarily only. And quite often they will not even attain those abodes. Because today, especially when people perform demigod worship, they don't do it with proper scriptural rules and regulations. So tam niyamastaya means there has to be niyam. And one has to asthaya, one has to follow those niyams faithfully, those rules faithfully. So even the demigod worship has to be done according to rules and regulations. Now the rules and regulations for demigod worship may be different from the rules and regulations for worship of other people. Sorry, a worship of the Supreme Lord. Or the worship of demigods. Different demigods may have slightly different rules of worship. But there are rules nonetheless, and it's only when one follows the rules that one gets elevated. So today we have demigod worship in India, for example. We may have worship of Ganesh, and in the worship of Ganesh, in the pandal, people are having movie songs. So many people don't find anything objectionable in such a thing, because their whole idea is that this side of religious practice, they think that it's just one kind of entertainment. And okay, people are coming to Ganesh also for entertainment only, and people hear movie songs also for entertainment only. So what is the problem bringing two forms of entertainment together? But actually, it's a complete misunderstanding. The demigod worship also should be done for the glorification of the demigod. Ultimately, we glorify only the Supreme Lord. But if we are worshipping the Devata, then we should glorify that Devata in the worship. The best way to glorify the Devata would be to glorify that Devata as a devotee of the Supreme Lord.
Okay, what did he say? And I will then play the second part separately. Quickly, please.
Prabhuji, he mentioned that there are rituals to worship the demigods, plus demigods are the representative of Lord Krishna.
Yeah, so I also explained this, that there are different rules to follow for each of the different demigods. Okay, very good. Rest of you?
So there are different rules and regulations to worship every god. So now these days we are playing the Bollywood songs, or taking this just as an entertainment purpose is something wrong direction we are going.
Yeah, and soon, so if you do demigod worship properly, you will get some benefit. And if you do demigod worship improperly, like play Bollywood movie songs in the pandal where Ganpati is, well, you will get nothing. What's the point of that demigod worship? Therefore, Krishna goes on to say in 9.23, Avidhi Purvakam, wrong way. Demigod worship is done in a wrong way. Therefore, 9.23, Krishna goes on to say, Krishna does not approve demigod worship. Okay, very good. Anybody else? What else do you remember?
And even if somebody really does all this step, the best case for that ultimate blessing is then he gets to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah. So if you worship demigods alone, the best result is heaven. Well, heaven is like going to a resort, is very toxic. So if at all you want to worship demigods, you first worship Krishna, offer bhoga to Krishna, not two separate plates. You cannot make two separate plates of bhoga. No, first offer bhoga to Krishna, then transfer that bhoga as prasad onto a different plate and offer that prasad to demigod. Demigods will be very pleased that you gave Krishna prasad to demigods. That's the proper way to worship demigods, as well as Chetan Chandra has also explained that worship the demigods as glorifying them as devotees of Krishna. Don't worship demigods as gods. They don't have any authority to begin with. Yes, they are devotees. Don't disrespect demigods, but they don't have any authority. All right, very good. I'll play the second part and then we will again come back to discuss. It's just about 2 minutes.
God's image might be there, but actually one is worshipping, one is only singing movie songs over there. And maybe in the morning or in the evening when Marti is there, little bit some songs of the demigods, praising the demigod may be there. But even those songs are often sung by professional musicians who are singing not out of devotion, but they're singing because of the desire for profit. They're singing so that they can become famous, they can earn money. So that sort of worship of the devatas is not going to lead to much spiritual advancement. Actually speaking, by the worship of devatas, also even if it is done properly, there is only gradual spiritual advancement. And when Krishna is saying that the worship of himself, if it is done with material motives, from there to come to pure surrender may take many lifetimes. And if somebody is doing worship of devatas with material motives, from there to come to Krishna worship may take a very long, much longer time. And that's why it's not a particularly encouraging or elevating. It's not particularly it's not something which as devotees we should encourage. Whenever we get the forum, we don't have to hurt people's sentiments if they're doing demigod worship, but we can guide them when people are uninformed. And because they are uninformed, they just don't know that there is something wrong over here. We can gently but gravely explain that how demigod, if at all somebody is doing demigod worship, then they should do demigod worship properly. The best way is by connecting the glorification of the demigod with the education and position of the demigod as the supreme law, as the servant of the supreme lord. But that's why Krishna is saying over here, it's not that all of this will lead to the same result. So if somebody is doing the worship of the devata, it is not that by worshipping that devata, the person will go back to Krishna. It's very clearly Krishna is saying, Devan Devayajo Yanti. Those who worship the devatas will go to devatas. And Mad Bhakta Yanti Mamapi. Those who worship me will come back to me. And because attaining me is eternal attainment, attaining the abode of the devatas is temporary attainment, therefore the two cannot be equated.
Madan Prabhu's question got answered directly. Rest of you quickly, what did he say? Somebody? Somebody? All right, I got silence. We are just past 11:45 a.m. Toronto time, our end time. Anybody has any questions, comments, realizations? So our next class is going to start 15 minutes early. It's going to be a very heavy class. We will discuss important topics such as Brahmavad, Shunyavad, Advaitavad, Nirvisheshavad, as well as we will also discuss how does Krishna know the future? What does future mean? We'll use Janisha and Maldives for our example to understand about future. Chandar, you have a question?
Yes, Prabhuji, I have a question. Why demigod is called glorified devotees? Why glorified?
Yeah, so you can glorify the devotees of Krishna. You don't have to worship demigods as gods because they are not gods. So if at all you still have desire to worship demigods, then worship them the way I described briefly, that offer bhoga to Krishna first. Don't make two separate plates. For bhoga to Krishna, when it becomes prasad, then on a different plate, offer that prasad to demigods. Or when you are worshipping demigods, don't worship them as God. Glorify them that you are devotees of Krishna. And the benediction you can ask to demigod is, help me also become a devotee of Krishna. Chandar?
Prabhuji, we also gone through like we have to associate with Guru, Shastra, or devotees. Here, it's again taking us back to this kind of devotees.
What devotees?
And yet, it's not taking us to the Krishna straight.
No. Here, what for demigod worship, what Chaitanya Chandas was explaining, that if at all you still have desire to worship demigods, then there is a process which I just described a minute ago. You don't need to do demigod worship at all. Then this discussion does not apply at all. You just follow your living spiritual master, and until you have a living spiritual master, follow Srila Prabhupada and do Krishna Bhakti. That's it. You don't need to worry about demigods at all.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Janisha?
So, Prabhuji, so in Nepal, India, there is a concept of Kul Devta in every home. So they have been doing these rituals of since very long generations of time. So are they from now, since this Krishna consciousness is developing, they should be switching it to Krishna, or they should be following as the generation has been doing these rituals?
So,
and the Kul Devta concept.
So this Kul Deva, Kul Devi, whosoever is following from generations, this is all wrong. So just because it has been done does not mean you have to follow. You have to use your intelligence. I have given you scriptural references. So if you actually follow the 4.12 demigod worship class, I have on the screen, I have scriptural references from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, where it's crystal clear that demigod worship is not required. And all these other whatever processes. So one is demigod and one is semi-god. Semi-god is somebody saying, I am God, you worship me as God. So all these are not proper processes. And those who worship this guru, they will say, well, I am worshipping my guru is worshipping my guru's guru. So what happens with all these pseudo gurus in India and Nepal specifically, and other places also, that their parampara doesn't get connected all the way to Krishna. Yes, they have guru to guru to guru to guru, and at some place it stops. It doesn't go beyond that. Well, you are not connected to Krishna. Just because your guru is connected to some guru to guru to guru, but is it connected to Krishna or not? That's the question you have to ask. So if you open Bhagavad Gita introduction last page, there is a disciplic succession given which is connected all the way to Krishna. And if you read that 32 count list, that you starts from Krishna and then you have up to Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada then has ISKCON and all the rules and processes, all these are connected to Krishna. All other processes, if they are not part of the 4 official sampradaya, then they are not taking you anywhere. So the 4 official sampradayas on earth, I have only known this one sampradaya that we have in ISKCON, which is Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya. There are 3 other sampradayas which are there in other universes. There are bits and pieces of the other sampradayas here on earth, but I don't think they follow it properly. The other 3 sampradayas are, one is run by Shiva, not the Shiva that we have in the material world. It's the Sadashiva. There are 2 Shivas. The Sadashiva is eternal. There is Sadashiva running the Rudra Sampradaya. Then Lakshmi Devi runs the Shri Sampradaya. And then the Kumaras also have a Sampradaya, plus the ISKCON Sampradaya. These are the only 4 official Sampradayas that are connected to Krishna. Everything else is not going to get you any results. Janisha?
So Prabhuji, before Krishna was born, there was a time when people used to worship some other goddess. So, so to enlighten them, did the Krishna born, or were they wrong, or please rectify me on
So
that.
Krishna is not born at some point and Krishna does not die. Krishna existed before material existence even came into existence. So all this visual is coming up very, very soon in our classes here. Krishna existed before material world was created. So how can you say Krishna took birth? No, Krishna did not take birth. Therefore, for Krishna, we don't use the word birth, we use the word appearance. So roughly 5,000 years ago during Mahabharata time, Krishna did not take birth, Krishna appeared. And Krishna actually appeared in his 4-handed Narayan form. And then Mother Devaki and Vasudeva were saying, how are we going to protect you from Kamsa? It's very, very obvious that you are Vishnu. So then the Vishnu form of Krishna transformed into a child. But Krishna doesn't take birth. Krishna does not die. Krishna is eternal. So this point, others have all this misunderstanding about Krishna. No, you are studying scriptures. You follow properly. Others, you can guide them if you have a proper forum. Else, you can pray to Krishna to guide them somehow. Janisha?
So Prabhuji, since before the Krishna appeared, people were worshipping some other goddesses. So were they wrong at that time?
They were wrong at that time. They are wrong now.
Okay.
So Krishna always existed. Krishna consciousness also always existed. It was just in a not as big as it is now. Krishna consciousness has been in existence from before. Just people did not know. And we'll discuss this. Where will we discuss? We'll discuss this in chapter 14 about the modes. Why are all these thousands of religions in the material world? Is because people are controlled by the modes and they want to satisfy themselves. Therefore, they have created all these religions for their own satisfaction. Janisha?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sumnima, we are already past time, but go ahead.
Prabhuji, is it not that they worship another form of Vishnu before Krishna?
So some did. Krishna has many forms. Some did it properly. But Janisha's question was that before people started to know about Krishna, say roughly 5,000 years ago, they were worshipping some Devi, some Devta, or some pseudo-guru, or some semi-god, not even demigod, semi-god. Well, all those were because of the impact of the modes and the effect of time. Sumnima?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you.
All right, so we are 10 minutes past. Thank you for tolerating. Again, our next class will start 15 minutes early. I will post message in the chat. Please join early. And it's a very heavy discussion at our next class. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.